Hello. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm not talking so loud. Welcome. I'm glad that we got a decent crowd here. I want you to see the presentation that we've got for you, and at the end, we'll have a chance for questions and answers. So, before we get started, my name is Mike Nutter. I'm superintendent here, and at the table here, I'll let these guys introduce themselves, but they're OFCC and FMDR educational planners. So.
Melanie Friedman, I'm principal with FMD.
Hi, Tim Ruzick, FMD Architects, Associate Principal.
Yeah, talk closer.
And I'm Mark Moore, one of the principals of FMD Architects.
I'm Valerie Montoya, the Deputy Chief of Planning at the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission.
Jenny Logan, Treasurer.
Well, not everybody may know you. You're fairly new.
That's right.
So anyway, I'm not going to talk through this whole meeting, so I'm sure most people are happy about that. We're going to turn this over to OFCC first. Enjoy this presentation. Like I said it before, this is a chance in a lifetime. You got a chance to build a beautiful, brand new facility, and you don't have to go to the taxpayers for a bond issue. So, all right. So like I said, last question. That's right. It's a good day. So we could do a Q&A at the end, but like I said, we'll let them get started with the presentation, and then we'll go from there. Thanks.
All right, so hello. Pretty sure it's like so yeah, I'm from the Christian, and we worked with the district back in 1920 up until now. As part of this project here to build the new elementary under one of our programs, which was the locally funded program, as they kind of sat and waited for the opportunity to come through our funding program, the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program. And I would say back when we started the district in 1920, or before that, it was going to be 10 maybe-ish years before that opportunity came for funding, where we would come in and provide state funds. Last month, our commission actually changed one of our policies to allow us to move forward some districts that, based on, this is what's called the equity list that's provided by the Ohio Department of Education. And of course, that kind of ranks the districts based on per pupil evaluations that, in essence, said, kind of identifies districts as, quote, low wealth. Really, it's not necessarily it's low wealth, but in their eyes, the amount of property values versus number of students and other factors showed a need and showed an opportunity for us to come in and work with the district sooner. And so, at their meeting last month, we changed the policies now, allowed us now bring the district forward. When this project happened back in 2020, the district locked in at a 80% state share, 20% local share. So, at the course of the project, we will pay 80%. District has to pay 20, and with the 25-ish, 26 million or more that was spent here on this building, that will allow us to come back and pay for pretty much the options that are on the table without having to raise more local funds for the building itself. There are some funds and some portions of it that might be locally funded that are above and beyond what we would provide funds for, but in reality, a lot of it's going to be, the vast majority of it's going to be paid for by the state. And so what we've gone through the last couple months is some different options and looking at what we could do and what the district could do based on enrollment and what you already have versus what state is in the future. And we're going to review a couple of the main options here. But over the next couple months, once those options are approved through the district, through our commission, the controlling board, the different states, approval processes, by the end of this summer, would be early fall, we're looking at getting into a potentially project agreement and starting the design, construction, whatever that new project is. So we're just here to, I'm here to help answer questions as far as what the state can do and what we're here to provide, but really here to say, hey, it's an opportunity to move forward with the project and get it going, and with little funds with the district that you've already put in, what you need by building this building here. So, and my quick comments, and more will come from you guys here after the, and then I'll just be here to also answer questions all the way.
Thank you, Valerie. So I don't know if all of you know, but we had been already talking with the district about need. Obviously, your population has been increasing, and just looking at educational planning, just what to do with facilities in the meantime while we're waiting for the OFCC funding to come. So when the announcement was made, we could see a great need that small little projects weren't really going to meet. So we were super excited that the funding is here and that you can actually more fully meet your needs without having to try to piecemeal things together, and that it can be done without raising additional local funds for the co-funded portion of the project. So when we say co-funded, that means the state has a design manual and there are square footages that they'll provide based on the student population, and certain things they'll put in the building. There are other things they might not fund in the building. We'll talk about those at the end. But just to get a co-funded project, get you a fully functioning brand new building. And there are a couple different aspects of this that we need some feedback on for what your thoughts are. So when we looked at the master plan options, so far the feedback that we've been getting is that a high school is what is desired, but we still want to show the comparisons of these two plans and pros and cons between them so that we can get your thoughts on all of this as well. So a new high school would be grades 9 through 12. There's also another component of the plan that would allow for a middle school of grades 5 through 8 with a renovation, and then tearing down the older portions of the building and then doing an addition to make a fully functional middle school of the right size. That project could be done now or it could be done later. So that's kind of the second decision that needs to be made. You have to decide what the project is and then what the timing of that project is. So as far as looking at the two different plans, new middle school will just be flip-flopping that, new 5 through 8, and 9 through 12 will be the renovation and addition. So square footages are fairly similar in terms of the total square footage, 137,000 and change for new high school, 143 for new middle school. Part of that is because there's actually more middle school students. You don't have students looking for career tech and things like that drop the population just a little bit. As far as academic space, the high school, again, for those reasons, with not all the students being here on campus, you get a little bit like 4,000 square feet less of academic space. But one of the biggest differences is in the physical education and athletic space. So for a middle school, the state will only fund the basic size gymnasium, a few minimal bleachers, a couple locker rooms and offices for the PE teachers. For the high school, because of the nature of it being a high school, they will fund more space for the gymnasium, but they will also fund 1,500 square foot weight room, a 1,400 square foot multi-purpose room that could be moving some square footage around. You can get a wrestling room out of that. So there are additional PE functions that can be done in a new high school that you can get in a middle school. The total project cost of the new high school is also a little bit less. You're coming in just under 63 million for the high school and 65 and a half, I'm rounding everything, for so looking at the pros and cons, option one is the new high school, and when you build a new high school and move middle school students into what the high school spaces are, you would get more than what the straight school design manual gives you in some areas. A middle school science lab that does not have a prep area. The music spaces don't have practice area. So there are certain things that you would get better using the existing high school than you would if you were to build a new middle school. The larger gymnasium would be available to the middle school students, and then you would have two larger gymnasiums in the district, which is the one bigger one and then a tiny smaller one. The field house and stadium will show you some graphic images of potential site layouts. Nothing has been decided by any means, but just some examples of how it could work. Having a new high school could be closer to the field house and stadium, so student drivers aren't mixing with elementary and middle school students after classes because they're moving on with their day with elementary school still in session. A couple pros for the middle school plan, the staff and students will be moving into a space that's built just for them. It's geared towards specific to middle school students, the arrangements of those spaces, as opposed to trying to go in and renovate a high school to a middle school. You would also have the middle school students closer to the elementary school, so the high school will stay where it is, and on the side campus, with the younger students together. So some cons for both plans, for in a new high school scenario, the middle school students would move into the old high school, and then depending on the timing of the plan, it might be a while. So they would have a lot of elbow room in some of those older buildings, but the middle school students are the ones that have been kind of shifted from building to and they would have to do that again, while the second segment is being waited for. As far as the new middle school, we kind of talked about that already as far as a con. They would lose out on some of those oversized spaces, the dining space as well. The way that the state funds it, it's a formula, and the existing high school dining area is much bigger than what the new middle school would get. So if the population continued to grow, you would be able to have a larger dining room already with the state funded plan. Another con, it's not a huge number in the grand scheme of things, but there would be $23,000 needed locally towards kitchen space, just the way that they run the formulas and numbers that would have to be put into the plan from the district. And depending on what happened with athletic spaces for locally funded, there would be additional local funds needed to get weight room spaces and things like that might be a need in the district. And again, the project cost is slightly higher. Yes.
Just a second. Being pulled up, we're going to show you some conceptual plans. So we've looked at a lot of numbers and information pulled up. We can go back one slide. There we go, perfect. So again, we've looked at numbers, the charts and everything. We wanted to say, okay, what does it start looking like on the site? What's that square footage of a new high school look like? What's the square footage of a new middle school look like? So with all of this, everything you see here is very conceptual. No one's saying that this is what's going to be constructed, where it's going to be constructed. It's a first take to start the exploration of what this could look like on the site and to get feedback. Where previously we were showing a field over here, a new baseball field, but hey, there's some practice fields that are occurring in that area, so it might not be beneficial. Things like that we get feedback from. But as you look at this plan, this is for the new high school. So looking at it, you have the proposed high school, the 9 to 12 here. The lighter area would be single story, and the darker tone would be a 2-story element. So you get probably the kind of the classrooms would be 2-story stacked. It becomes a natural buffer from what we've heard from the sounds and the lights from the stadium, as well for those neighbors there. You have that 2-story natural sound buffer occurring right in that stadium area. And the placement of it also provides a nice separation and opportunities for site circulation as well. The bus and event parking that we have here could be dedicated for the high school, but again, serving multiple times a day. later in the evening or after school, it could serve buses coming in for the stadium, and it's completely separate from the staff visitor parking and also the student parking that's over here. We are showing 2 drive aisles connecting over the Ag Broad. That still needs to be investigated on what needs to happen with the road and potential widening, deceleration lane, a turn lane. Those are things that would be further investigated. But those access points, again, just take some relief off of 201. Also with its placement, you see that there's opportunity for growth, not only to the field to the west, but even future additions to the building. Nothing that we're showing right now is something where, oh, we got to demo that out to add on in the future. You're setting yourselves up where you're always moving forward with an addition, with a renovation. You're not constricting what you're doing with the new construction. All of this could occur construction-wise independent of what's happening with the schools. So we're not trying to tuck it into a certain area that would provide issues that you can imagine construction workers on site. This area can be safely, completely separated from the activities and not have a significant impact on the elementary and the other schools. The proximity to the stadium as well, we felt worked really well. We've been here multiple times and seen people just walking along here, students parking further away. They could go right from the school over to the stadium and have that direct contact. So that, yeah, there's educational opportunities for that connection as well. We're showing a field house here with possible concessions and restrooms, but there also could be connections for classrooms. There could be opportunities for training rooms, extended classrooms where I think drones were even mentioned at the previous board meeting, and opportunities you could fly in that field there. So that connection and that proximity works really well. The existing elementary would stay K through 4. There's opportunities for additional stadium parking. We've got those dashed in. LFIs that we'll talk later about. There's opportunities for practice fields, baseball, softball fields. We're just dashing them in right now. There's opportunities for even more, depending on how the LFIs work out. We've color-coded the dates here in the information that you saw or presented. The co-funded portion of the OFCC allows for demolition of portions of that building, going back, I think, up until 1999. So the 2017 would stay, and 1999 would stay. The rest has the option for demolition. Not saying that all of that needs to be demolished. That would be, again, a discussion with the school district. Might be opportunities where we say, oh, this area, we've recently done a nice upgrade to it. It could become maybe admin offices, something along those lines. Or just extended space where having the gym here, even though it's 1959, it's great to have another gym opportunity for that space. So with all of this, with the high school, the middle school options that you'll see, you're not only moving forward years for this opportunity and being presented to this district, but there's so much flexibility with it still. You're not being pushed into a certain area where, oh, we have to tear down that whole building. We don't want to. There's options for the community to come together and really give feedback to make sure this fits what the district needs today, but also moving forward. So we can continue. Next slide. I think this is just a closer view. The same thing, just rotated. So north is now up, but you still have the practice fields, baseball and softball opportunities, the field house, maybe a new entry plaza off of this area. It's very conceptual. We're not showing walkways or anything yet, but there would be safe passage walkways with bollards. There'd be areas where this is circulation for pedestrians. Complete separation from vehicular traffic. All of that would be taken into consideration. Proper lighting, lighting that's kind of dark sky focused, where you're not shooting lights to the neighbors or anything like that. It would be purposeful and thoughtful. Future addition still shown here, and then that connection off of that existing drive line we have. Next slide. So same thing, middle school. Very similar, as Mel showed you. The square feet is just a few thousand feet off. So we showed a similar layout with the educational in that two-story element, and then the single story here. It worked really well for the connection between the two spaces with the stadium here. Obviously, you lose that student parking that's on that west side, but you still have that drive aisle connection. The staff and visitor parking here on the east side, still a separation with the bus and event parking. So either way, you still have that proper circulation and you have the proper square feet for the use. The majority stays the same for the rest of it, and I think the next slide is just an enlarged view of the same thing. There could be a playground on that west side, and then also mechanical yard service area. All that is taken into consideration. All of it's on a safe, secure side away from parking lots, things like that, where you're not having parking adjacent to playground. Thanks.
So the next thing we'll get back to relates to timing. So you've heard us talk about segment 2. The segment 1 for a new building is designed, the master plan was designed with enrollment projections for 10 years out. That takes carriage trails 2 into consideration, everything is known today. The challenge with that is we don't know if there will be carriage trails 3, 2.5, and other things in the future. So if you were to say, this is a great plan, we want to address the high school and the middle school now, it would still be phased and to build the new building, we get the swing space and make all of that work. But it would be phased over 3 or 4 years. Or do we wait? Because if everything is done now, the state says we have met our obligation, we've co-funded your project, you're on your own for about 20 years. If you only do the first phase, then the state will put you on their kind of waiting list to come back to the top of the list again in approximately 5 or 6 years, is kind of guess right now, they would come back and reassess the enrollment again. So 5 or 6 years from now, we would know if your enrollment had increased, if there was additional developments planned, and then they would co-fund a project of the scale, maybe that last project gets bigger, or additions are done to the elementary and the high school, they would recast all of that and you get a new master plan at that time, they would co-fund it. Right now, you're getting, if you did a new high school, you get about $6 million returned to the district to put towards debt service at the end of this whole project. If you didn't do that, you would save that money and the state would hold on to it, and then you could put that towards the larger plan. So between inflation and potential larger plans, there might be a small locally funded item that would be needed, but you would still have the majority of the funds to cover it. If you did everything now and got your money back, you'd have to put it towards debt service, and then in 5 or 7 years, you go to do a new plan, it would have to be 100% of the funds. You have to go back out to the voters to ask them for to do that remaining work. So, there's a council. Oh, it was the cost of divisions. I feel like we put all of them together. So The trade-off is you get middle school, high school, all of your work done sooner and you get those kiddos in the buildings now, but you might not have enough or you wait, but then kids are stuck waiting, teachers are stuck waiting to get into their final thing. But you're definitely funded for the future. So that's a decision that as a district, board will have to make. So the two items that the state needs in order to move forward with finalizing master plan and announcement funding and getting everything going is, are we doing the new high school with a potential reno in addition for a middle school, or are we doing a middle school and are we doing the whole program now? Doing it in phases. I know there's a lot of information, there's a whole bunch of formulas and facts and figures, we've got piles of information and numbers. So if you wanted more detailed information, we can provide that. We wanted to give kind of a high level overview, just trying to get a basic understanding of what's at hand for what the state needs. In addition to that, we have more time to discuss this, but there are possible locally funded initiatives. So outside of the co-funded program, this list is things that many districts will pull from a different pot of money. Sometimes they'll get donated funds for athletic fields, those kinds of things. This is what you might want or need in the district. And we've talked about putting kind of a shopping list together. Here's about how much each of these items that you all wanted us to study would cost. You can prioritize them. And at some point, it will need to be defined what's happening for items that are like built into the building. If there are portions that get built integral to that, those really should be known kind of earlier in the process. If it's something completely separated, like a field house, that could be decided a year from now. So these don't all have to be answered today. None of them need to be answered to get the state moving on the master plan. But we did want to bring them up because we have all of them here to get feedback as far as what you think that the district should be considering for local funds, or they shouldn't. If you say no, I don't think we should be spending any local funds. So we just want to get all of that information and feedback so that we can continue with the master planning and putting costs to everything so that the board can ultimately vote and make decisions based on really good data. So I think we'd love any questions, kind of Q&A, and just so you know timing, there is a board meeting next week where they'll determine what plan to move forward with and the timing.
Yeah, so your feedback is important. What we want to hear, we can use one of two ways. I can just put the mic up here, you go off the podium, or you can raise your hand and I'll come around and give you the mic. Preference? Okay, I'm just going to put it on the podium. Got a question? Come on up. We'll get it answered.
All right, you guys know I always have questions. So I got a whole list. So I'm Jill Grease. Good to see you. So I have some comments and some questions. In general, this is just my personal opinion. I feel we need to look farther down the road in 5 or 10 years. We know that another 15 houses are slated to be built in the next 10 to 15 years, and that is what we need to build for now. Got it. However, we also know that development will continue in this township, whether it is through annexation, development of our farm ground. Understand that farmers will not continue to want to farm in our township as the traffic becomes greater and the fields get smaller, because we are picking up the road frontage for houses. As our local farmers pass on, the farmland will be sold and developed because we will not be able to attract younger farmers to our high traffic township. Also, people who moved here that have a little land and live in the county, in the township, are beginning to leave because the quality of life that we used to enjoy is being eroded. In addition, the township is an aging population. So just through the normal cycle of life, the homes in the township that are currently owned by empty nesters will be purchased by those with or wanting a family. Meaning not only will additional development add more students to Bethel, but normal turnover and house ownership will produce more students. This is why I think we need to look have a 50-year plan and not a 5-year plan. Based on parent feedback, the high school students should be farther away from the elementary students. This is consistently raised as a concern from the elementary students' parents. Yes, there's a parking lot between the schools, but high school students have more freedoms, can be outside, and have more flexibility about coming and going from the premises. And the high school has different hours than elementary, so putting more space between them would minimize disruption. In addition, more distance between them would make it harder for someone who's not associated with the school or someone who should not be there to have access to the elementary area as vulnerable students. If the high school is moved farther west, it could leave options for a standalone auditorium in the future, which could be shared by both the high school and the elementary. Also, parking for the auditorium could come from sharing both elementary and high school lots, kind of like the plan for the stadium, right? While a standalone auditorium may seem out of reach at the moment, it could become a reality in the near future. A standalone performance center would not only provide our students with an excellent opportunity, but it could generate income for the school, which could be reinvested in our district to benefit the kids. And then what about the future elementary needs? So my hope would be to put an elementary for our number 5 in Carriage Trails 2.0. It gives them a place to play and gather locally. They can walk or ride their bikes to school, which reduces the need for so many buses, which will otherwise continue to increase as the number of houses increases in the dense area of Carriage Trails 2.0. It also would not further increase, contributing to additional traffic coming up our limited roads to get to the Bethel School campus. Moving the high school west could also leave an option to put a second elementary right next to the existing elementary, should it not be built in Carriage Trails 2.0. I don't think you would want to have a high school in between the 2 elementary school buildings. So again, 25 to 50 year boundary, probably, maybe not even that far that though. What about additional future high school needs? I know the school design's not finalized, but we have to be space for it. Wherever we build the high school to be able to add on to it or you build a second building. I saw there's in the plan, there is a small add-on, but it's kind of crammed into a small area. So we just need to not limit ourselves too much on that. There seems to be an abundance of baseball and softball fields, but no tennis courts or pickleball, which is currently which is currently a fast-growing sport. Plus, there are students at Bethel that play regularly already. There's no practice field for the marching band. In the past, there has been difficulty for the band getting practice time because of football field, since such high demand for both practices and games, as we have so many teams from Pee Wee to varsity. Having another football field would allow for both band practice and potentially football practice for our younger teams. It could also contribute to extending the life of the very expensive artificial turf in which we have invested. Lastly, here's my questions. Can you help us understand the updated funding? Are the new enrollment projections finalized and how far out do they go? What years? If we do 2 phases, will there be enough money to wholly fund the middle school if enrollment didn't change? So I understand reevaluating the student population, the expected enrollment at that time, but I'm just trying to understand that 2 numbers, the 62,000 and the 65,000, will it cover everything regardless of 1 or 2 phases? Does the new funding include the cost of living increase over the original cost per square foot allotment we were given to the K-5? As you may recall, inflation hit hard right as we started to build the elementary building, and we had to chip on our own funds to cover the distance difference. Another reason I'm kind of skeptical when you say there's going to be $6 million at the end. I get the math right now, though I see that evaporating as time goes by. We don't have those go. And then my last question is, did we get reimbursed 80% of the additional money we spent to increase the elementary to 1,000 students? We put some of our own LFI money for that, and we're told when the re-enrollment, projections were redone for the enrollment that we could get that back. So I'm just wondering if we got that back, because we spent LFI to get to 1,000 students. And thank you for letting me speak. My phone.
You might need to hang tight because we can jot stuff down, but I might need you to repeat questions if we don't answer them. Just hang tight because we might have to ask you to repeat a question or something. So The state co-funds based on 10-year enrollment, so those enrollment projections have been finalized. And
For 10 years from now.
yes, and one of the LFI items on the list is additional classroom space, because sometimes schools say, we know more is coming, we want to build bigger, you have the right to do that, co-funded, but you can do that as an LFI. If we only do the first segment, when they come back, if things have increased, then they would increase what the whole master plan is. So the idea of like a carriage trails, elementary school, if in the time that they're gone and come back, if enrollment supports it, that could be part of a future master plan to have an extra elementary school, but that won't be known until that time if enrollment is increased.
Those weren't any of my questions, except for the 10-year window. I understand how the LFI works. I'm asking if we got back that difference that we have already put into this.
I was responding to some of your comments as well, and then getting it, I was trying to go in order of everything you said. So the plan, again, as Tim said, it was done just to get a quick layout so that we could start to understand and look at things. We've had about 2 weeks of time to put everything you've seen together today, so there hasn't been a lot of time to study it. It was done in an effort to help make the decision of high school and middle school. But there is a lot of work to go into planning, so the location need for the west are absolutely further west, for site studies that need to be done, traffic studies, like there's all kinds of work background. So this is not your only opportunity to have input on where that goes or how it's positioned in the separation of development that you bring up. The tennis courts and pickleball, we'll put that down in our notes as far as adding other potential athletic LFIs, as well as the marching band fields and
Those were things the facility committee had in their list.
okay. Yeah, those are
And
all.
that as well as cross country, but I've been schooled on how to cross country, so I didn't mention it.
Okay. As far as the updated funding, if enrollment did not increase, there is enough money to cover both projects, even with inflation included. We ran numbers at like 4.5% inflation, there's still money in there. So at $6 million being returned, if you think about that being only 20% of a construction project, I want to say it's 30, we can do the math. But that would be a significant increase to the total project cost if $6 million represented only 20% of the added project value, if that makes sense. So as of right now, yes, it covers either of the projects without any additional funds from the district. If you do, yeah, I was gonna.
So I guess I have a couple of different questions. As far as the initial square footage here, yeah, I mean, in one of the cost worksheets, and I'll go back and double check, but yeah, we took into account the additional square footage by placing the full enrollment of K through 4 in this building that filled up all the extra square footage or nearly all the extra square footage that was built here. And to maximize how much credit we earn here, we'll make sure in whatever space we fill up on paper with students, even if it increases the credit amount, we'll make sure we're accounting for that with the LFI that was built here. Actually, I'm gonna get it all these, but yes, the extra square footage would get more credit if it because it showed go beyond what the original plan was for this building.
So for this building, it was K5 at the time, and we filled it and then some.
Yeah, and that's at this point now,
So it's not less really, it's really more than what.
yeah, but I think at this point now, the K4 pretty much filled it up and we moved on paper with the plan to show towards the other building. But yeah, all the square footage we're pulling up here will get credited. So you know, a little bit extra on top of what was previously projected as the output amount. And we'll note that within the master plan is, you know, that it accounts for X amount of students at this square foot cost. And yeah, the square foot cost from 2019, 2020, of 2 something a square foot has grown drastically to 400 or 450 a square foot now. So our inflation factor for the last 5-6 years, even the numbers we have, we'll have a little more inflation on them because these are like 24 costs that we just, they're 25 costs that we did. We've only got a 26 inflation factor of about 4.3%, I think. So these will go up just slightly, but they're still enough for credit to cover everything with today's inflation. But yeah, the numbers have grown and inflated over year, we have like 1% based on what we see in the market. And with the idea that we're not going to be building for another year and a half, depending on that project and how it's funding comes to it. So some just have to wait for the ballot in November. You know, won't get started with their design and construction next year. And this one, with having money to go, we can get started with design this fall. So we'll ahead of the game to help even more. We can put that in a dollar value if hopefully last with the co-funded portion of the project. And if there are, I would say if there are some issues in the budget, we know there's some other factors out there that we're not necessarily seeing what the full impact will be today, with things going on in other countries and prices of different commodities. The last few years we've had projects get budget adjustments. It's never guaranteed, it's never an easy process to get a budget adjustment, but if there's any made those accommodations and the upgrading, more likely than if pitching more funds, we usually pitching more state funds to accommodate for any sort of investment, but we can continue to look at it throughout the time. If something comes up through our funding programs with dollar values, not necessarily not changing actual construction costs.
So you can adjust along the way.
Within our funding programs, our locally funded ones, those a little less flexible in those we're not in the see stuff, but yeah, within the funding program, if there's a need, I have to say it's not easy, and I think a lot of really likes to do budget adjustments once they're ready, the potential for those things if there's a drastic change in costs, which we've seen in some years.
Okay, thank you.
Did we get everything?
So it's really just my answer was the only question. The rest of it was just my number.
Well, I thought all of it deserved a response. Thank you, those are very good comments.
Go ahead. You don't need.
So I'm asking for my review today should I say it right? It kind of touched on this, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you just to verify. Have you taken into account the effects that place at the school will have on everybody who lives there, like traffic lights tonight? I mentioned that that's those things still done. So are those going to happen, and can that potentially move with the school place depending on what comes out of that? From what you guys propose.
Yeah, the traffic circulation discussions there have not taken place. So we're, as Mel mentioned, we're 2 weeks into this review from approval given by the OFCC. All that will be taken into consideration. It could dictate you can only get one dry mile connection over there. To get two, all of that will be taken into consideration with how much traffic flow is going to be, peak hours in the morning, peak hours as schools letting out. All of it will be taken into consideration and noted to the community for feedback as well.
We will say that the road is set up, it's right away, the power poles are moved back quite a bit on both sides. So it is set up for easier expansion. I think the elevation of the road. So it is set up, but there is a traffic study that has to be done and then shared with the community, the city, township. So we have to go through there and talk about that. We create a final plan that would control the traffic properly.
Well.
Hi, my name is Amanda Morgan. I'm a parent of a 4th grader and an 8th grader. I don't know why I'm emotional. I think you asked for feedback from the community. I think our high school is in need. It's like now. We walk the hallways during, like, in between my daughter's art concerts, like that, in the high school, and I see the need for high school now. There's open space that they've turned into classrooms. There's teacher workrooms that they've had to take for like special ed classrooms. There's things that are disappearing very quickly. I think if we wait on a high school, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be hard. Even with moving the middle schooler out, there's so many portions of the middle school building that do need renovation to become a high school setting. I think it'd be better fitted for the district or the state to look at high school. Logistics, I don't care. Use your space wisely, go up, not out, not like the elementary, but yeah. Learn. Yeah. But for right now, like the middle school can adjust to assuming all that space in the high school. The high school, those kids, they're bigger body, they need more things, there's more students per classroom lots of times. So personally, as a parent and as someone that's been here for like 4 years now, gonna stay here a while longer, I guess. My husband retired, so we're staying here. I feel like that is the absolute need for this district to really excel and start taking off. I do think that things need to be reevaluated in 10 years because who knows what's gonna happen. It's like what everybody else said. We don't know what land's gonna be grabbed up, who's gonna develop where, and who's gonna sell off and do what they want with it. But I think for right now, to get us through a good 5-year chunk, it's gonna be the high school will be the better choice.
Do we have a timeline for, like, when you guys make a decision next month? What's the time frame for the game? It's actually going to be the money for this.
Well, I'll start with the approval process and then we'll talk about the design and construction process. So, we're anticipating a July commission approval. So that's our commission, so I work with, so it's the state body. Once they approve it, it would go to the controlling board, which technically releases the funds for the project. And then at that point, we would look to enter into a project agreement with the district. So that's just basically a contract between our two entities saying, we're gonna give this amount of money for this project, to do these things. And so, you know, if we can get to the point of a project agreement in September, August, September, somewhere in there, maybe sooner because there's no need to wait for bonds to be sold and other things. It should be a quick process. As we're doing that, I'd be working with someone planning team. We have what we call project manager, project staff, project team. We would assign a dedicated project manager from the commission, and probably in August, we would come out to the district, have what we call a kickoff meeting, kind of talk to you, kind of what we talked about today, or the fine tuning of what the project is, any of the L5s, or the funding issues that are gonna be part of this project, so that we can then start issuing what we call a RFQ or request for qualifications of architect, and depending on how we do the construction of the contractor or construction manager, and those take a couple months or a month and a half, just depending on posting, shortlisting of interviews, but relatively quick process for the better design requirements. But as soon as we have our technical board, it's a matter of how quickly we design a building, and that's what I'll say. You guys want to say how quickly you can design 100,000 square foot building. We could ballpark at least a year on average, but
That's where we safely go with the discussions with the community, township, whoever else involved. If we're given, or whoever's given the approval to proceed, late summer this fall, drawings would be completed late summer, early fall next year, and then construction would begin shortly after. So you're looking probably fall next year. Earth is starting to move. They're starting to make some changes here on the site and moving things forward. Construction takes a year and a half to 2 years. So that's kind of the time frame that you're looking at. There could be an early site package to get things moving forward, but all in all, you're looking probably at a year and a half from the start of construction to ribbon cutting.
so yeah, around 2.5 to 3 years. So maybe immediate move, maybe a fall next year, just depends on how, or what the contractor said, and if there's any other things that impact the different products or equipment, because that has been over the last few years, some of the delays we've had is just along that could have been construction, but I would say we're getting the team moving, so those are good, so that hopefully it will, so 3-ish years.
I just want to make sure the community keeps in mind that when we're talking 2 to 3 years, it seems like a long time. But keep in mind, prior to the OFCC changing their protocol and selection, they wouldn't even have approached Bethel for another 5 to 6 years, where you've cut that time down. You're right there for this opportunity. So I want to just keep that in mind when we're talking years out.
And I would say that's just for most of our projects anywhere around 3 years. Is probably our least conservative start, and then if somebody can make it faster, they'll make it faster, but we don't wanna tell you it's gonna be 2 years when realistically it's probably not. It's gonna take time, and we wanna get it right and do the studies properly and build what we need to build, so.
Question. I am kindergartner and I have a 14-year-old in 8th grade going into 9th grade. And I'm wondering, if we see that the elementary school is already, we've got 5th graders in middle school, and I don't know if there's any intention of bringing 5th graders back to elementary school, because I've heard a lot of parents say they don't really like their kids going on the bus with high school graders. So why not add on to the elementary and build the high school versus the middle school? Since the middle school could spread out essentially where they're at. What was the decision on presenting these two versus?
Like, do you want to weigh in on that?
Sure, I mean, yeah, I think moving forward, what Doug's 56 over there. Okay, now we've got right side room to grow until this building gets built. There's a lot of, that's a common discussion among parents. I got 4 kids myself, and one 5th grader to the 8th grader, one 5th grader. The tiered buses, 5-6 is a different bus schedule. So 7-12, they're different buses, different schedules, but there's a lot of, so we can have that discussion of what's better, 8-5, 5-8, or whatever. We had made wide set academically what we had in place, what the future would be. 5-8 is brand new facility, or the renovated new facility. And all lessons they're by themselves, and you've got high school, so that's not actually stone, that is the action.
And from a facility standpoint, the building here had been designed for additional use for additional classroom space and things like that. It's hard to add common spaces, restrooms, dining areas, things like that. When you start doing like a little addition here and there, it adds a lot to the project costs, and then you're kind of maxed out from additional growth. So if it's left as a K-4 for now, and then the district continues to grow, it would have the opportunity to be expanded versus being kind of maxed out, and then what would happen with additional growth. So from a project cost facility standpoint, it makes sense that number takes priority over educational. In the 5 to 8 scenario, when that would get designed, because state of the high school, there would be separation of those students, so it's like that's the name there, and then I think like that's different question.
Yeah, they would be bigger one, 5-8, 5-6.
They share the same cafeteria and every kind of know when they go to middle school.
Pardon me?
They share the lunchroom.
500.
So they're still walking through the middle school to go. And they live
It's a big one. We do it now. We got high school.
Okay.
5-6 coming. We got enough space over there. Anyway.
So then it was considered as an option, but we decided that this was the better, sort of better choice. routes. Okay, thanks.
Yes, we did do some online work. Agree.
See, I'm just gonna go through some of these questions, the ones that I feel like have not answered. We've talked about the elementary school and where, you know, we possibly could have additional growth to this building if needed in a next segment. And that would be an advantage for waiting, not completing everything right now. Another question about future growth with carriage trails and if we would wait a little longer. There's questions about LFI's baseball field is definitely mentioned for sure. How long would it take? That's been answered. There's a couple of questions here specifically about local funds needed for this next phase. I think there's some confusion, at least 2 questions, and I think it's worth repeating. There's no additional, we will not be going to the ballot to ask for local funds for a new high school or a new middle school. This phase is completely being funded from the state's portion. So I think that was confusing to some folks.
Yeah, one of the
Exactly.
questions I'm taking the village, there is none because there's no funds. Sorry.
So I think one way to put that is, you have a whole district, a whole pie of construction work. And the local share was already built in this elementary school. So the remaining portion of the pie is all the state's responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we wanna make sure we're paying, or the state's paying, it's 80% of what would be co-fundable expenses, so in general, the academics, areas, even some athletics, but to a certain extent. There are some amenities for an auditorium, but not the auditorium itself, so like we'll fund a stage and some dressing rooms and changing rooms and, the stage area, the set. The seating would need to be captured like this, where you kind of go use for, if you wanted to truly fix the auditorium, that's where the seats themselves would be local funds, but a lot of the things around it, some basic lighting, sound systems for an auditorium, but, you know, the vast majority of a building, elementary, middle, or high school, whether it's new or renovations at some point over there, would be state board, make sure it pays 80% of it. And right now that 20% is covered by this, and I would say definitely this first segment would be covered, and I would say the vast majority of the second segment, it just depends on the timing. If you did grow a lot, there may be a small need, but I don't think we're talking about a 20 million, maybe a couple million or $500,000 or something, but that number won't be known for sure until we get to the point I was saying too. But I would say the leftover fund will cover that, we'll still cover a large portion of our project before we need to go back out.
The remaining questions really deal with location of the facility, which I feel like we've addressed tonight, so.
Anything else? Anybody? Yes.
Stage,
They're probably, yeah.
Yes, one.
And what point can we start on the LFIs that we will know we will have to move against? Like, for example, if we wanted to construct a concession stand or field house with bathrooms and all of that, whatnot, at what point in the stage is it safe that we can go and do that, put it where we want it, and not worry about it being in the way once construction starts, or having to possibly move it or deconstruct it or whatever the case may be? When is that safe time frame to do some of our own LPIs.
So you can start the planning now as far as how big costs, advertising and those kind of things. We would recommend that the same architect do the L5 as doing the full project. So to start the actual design work in late market or just like the architect process.
Yeah, I think we can make sure when we're doing this request qualifications that we would include that additional work. So that's why for us, if we did it there, say August, each timeline, what those L5s are, even in broad strokes, saying potential session, saying potential this, that are 100% locally funded. And that way you could procure one architect to do both the new building plus these other sure things. We may end up with 2 contracts, one for our portion and one for your, for somebody solely locally funded ones, but it would be ideal to have the same designer and everything, so it's all cohesive, and then same with the same contractor, won't be, the contractor behind would be both, we just make sure we account for other funds, keeping those 100% outline things, separate from the co-funded costs.
Must be saving money on batteries too.
If there's any additional ones that the facilities committee can talk about, or if there's anything that they want to study, please let us know.
Were we also gonna ask for anyone here who would want to give us feedback? I know we had talked about maybe people leaving us like, I like this option. For middle school. We had talked about that.
Straw poll. Show of hands.
Yeah, I mean, we could do show of hands.
I mean, who would like to see a new high school? Raise your hand.
Bus drivers.
All right, who would like to see a new middle school? Okay. Thank you. Question, here's one last question for me. Segmented or all at once? Who would like to see segmented? And all at once? Okay. I don't disagree with that.
I think that is helpful.
It was.
Yes.
Thank you.
Decision made.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Thank you all for being here, we appreciate your feedback, it's really important that these things aren't done in a vacuum, so thanks.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.